Well, hello everybody. Happy Friday. Today's the third time you've seen me, and it's always wonderful when we have our favorite Italian on the show, Mr. ZAGAMI. I know we have lots of very happy people to see you again tonight, Leo. So welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. How are you doing? How's the month been?
Surviving the heat, brutal heat of this summer, especially because, like I was telling you before we started, it's humid after Hurricane Hillary last year, so it's not your usual desert dry weather, which I much prefer, even when it gets to 120, 125 Fahrenheit, which is basically around 50 Celsius, which is the temperature we are having today and the other days. I mean, it's pretty intense. But we are here, of course, to talk about all the latest that happened in this incredible country called the United States of America, where the political scenes, the political scene of the United States offer us always a
what a crazy
drama, let's say, an ongoing drama.
Yeah, you guys are very dramatic there. I mean, one thing about the Americans, you all are very dramatic. Everything is always bigger, better, louder, faster. We're like,
now we have the presidential candidate dodging a bullet. It goes to another level. I think that it makes us understand, first of all, that these tensions that we saw for years between two factions which are dramatically divided like never before in history, the Democrats and the Republicans, it might get to another level if things, especially if Trump was killed, then we will have probably already had a civil war. But even in the next few months, if they try to fraud us with another attempt to maybe change the result of the election, maybe we could have also civil war. I mean, this definitely a lot of things that we have to discuss today in regards to this attempted assassination, which happened, of course, before Biden finally renounced to his bid to the candidacy, and the entrance on the scene of Kamala Harris, who has done absolutely nothing for 4 years and suddenly is promoted in the media like the next best thing after Barack Obama or something like that. I mean, she is from California, so we can definitely discuss what her career has been like, because here in California, they don't really like her that much for her decisions, but also for how she got to the place where she is after she had this improper, let's say, relationship with the former mayor of San Francisco, somebody who helped her out rising in her political career, and her career also, of course, prior to that, because we know that Kamala is not new to either politics or to being a district attorney, to being somebody who has been involved for many years in the Democrats.
Yes, exactly.
The Democrats, no? But the person who actually helped her out, we should definitely have a chat about Willie Brown, because Willie Brown is a very important member of the Democratic Party, who served as mayor of San Francisco between 1996 and 2004, and was the first African American to hold that office in a moment in which, of course, there was a fast development of the dot-com business. There was a lot going on in Northern California. And he was married, but now, of course, the media are saying, well, he was separating this and that. They try to find excuses also for Kamala Harris' incompetency as border czar. In the last couple of days, they even had the courage to say she was never a border czar when she was nominated by the same mainstream leftist media as a border czar, because it was Joe Biden who nominated as a border czar. And as a border czar, she completely failed in her job. I mean, it's been disgraceful what has happened at the border. Between 11 to 20 million illegals have entered the United States during Joe Biden's presidency. That's that's really the number of people of a rather medium country. I mean, 20 million people, you can set up your own country. I mean, imagine what kind of invasion we had here in the United States of America. And she was the one that, in theory, was supposed to stop all this. And what she did was only a couple of visits abroad. She went to Central America. She just showed her face in a couple of diplomatic moves, which didn't really change anything. And she was confronted even by the famous anchorman here in America, Lester Holt, in a now infamous interview in which she was kind of like, he was saying, you have never been to the border. And she was forced into admitting that she had never been to the border in her life, even after being nominated. And then she went briefly for this show in 2021. We were still in the middle of the pandemic. She went there and showed her incompetent ass at the border. I mean, what they're trying to do, the media is trying to do in the last few days with Kamala Harris, is basically like polishing a turd. You can't polish a turd.
Right.
And so that's the kind of result you have.
I had to listen twice, Leo, to hear if I'd heard you correctly.
Yeah, no, I'm totally correct about this operation. I mean, Operation Polishing the Head is what they're doing now, because she is completely incompetent. She has never been.
But Leo, I have something to ask you.
Of course, if leftists will see me now, they will say he's a masculist, he's racist, he's this and that. No, I mean, I'm neither of these things. I just think that the fact that in recent years a certain side of the political spectrum gives more importance to the race, to your sexuality, or to other things rather than the capacity of a human being. Well, I find that absolutely insane and dangerous for our society, because, of course, the result is in front of our eyes. We have incompetent people all over the place in all the institutions here in America, because they're not hired because they're capable of piloting a plane or driving a bus, but because they're black, they're Chinese, they're this, they're that, they're homosexual. I don't care if the guy who is driving my bus or who is piloting my plane is homosexual. I just care that he does the job. And that, unfortunately, is not the case here. And Kamala Harris is today there is a lot of discourse here in America in the last few weeks. This new term is coming into place, DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, a bit of a substitute to the previous woke terminology, because they say is also reserved to those people who might have been privileged themselves, so they also have to be considered equal. But in any case, she's the typical example of administration, the Biden administration, who wanted to look like they hired somebody that could then bring them, of course, the support of the black vote, the support of an important minority, and support also of the women. And now there is a lot of criticism also directed against the vice president.
Right.
Because the Vice President Harris didn't do her job also monitoring the actual health of the president. We have been saying for years here that the guy was completely affected by dementia, and he was on a path to becoming completely demented, because that's right. And they refused to accept that. And in the end, when he finally announces that he's not going to participate further to this presidential bid, he didn't really honestly give us an answer why he has given up his bid.
Well, I don't think
Because,
he really knows, does he? I mean, the man has dementia. But I have something to ask you, which is very interesting. And I actually mentioned it, excuse me, earlier this week on Jesse's show as well. But I don't know if you guys in the chat also remember, right in the beginning, when I started the channel, I used to interview David Zublig once a month. Now, David Zublig, David Zublig had obviously he was just David Zublig, then he's now the Awaken Nation or something. And he used to get a lot of intel. And I remember doing this interview with him. I think it was just before the elections when Biden came in. And what he said to me was that Trump wasn't going to get in again. He was not going to get reelected because they'd offered him a position called King of the North or something like that. If I remember correctly, it was King of something with the North.
I find it a little bit far-fetched. Sorry if I say.
Okay. Yes. But that's what I'm saying. But what they said as well, and then Biden would get in. And I said, and he said the elections were going to be corrupted. And I said, well, wouldn't he fight?
That is something I can agree with. The fact that now with Kamala Harris, we have to be afraid of another fraudulent result. That is possible. That is absolutely possible. I mean, with Kamala now, we need to follow the whole path of election integrity. And so.
But what he said to me, sorry, Leo, what he said to me then about that was that Biden, they had deliberately brought Biden in, and he was a very sick man, right? So knowing that he wasn't going to see out his full term, he didn't tell me what stage or whatever. And then Kamala Harris would come in, and that would be her opportunity to bring Hillary Clinton back in. But the only thing I question now is that at the time, there wasn't nearly as much dirt on Hillary Clinton back then as what there is now.
I don't think Hillary Clinton will join the ticket. There is other names that might be at the moment more important for the Democrats because they're losing ground in certain states, and so they need a candidate that helps them. So there is a lot of discussion now on various candidates, but definitely Hillary is not liked, and she was never liked. And yes, she endorsed, of course, with her husband Kamala, and now we saw also the endorsements of the Obamas. You see, the thing is this: the whole plot to get Biden out before he could lose the race happened, as we know, after the debate between Trump and Biden. And it's a plot which, of course, is the participation of one of the key leaders still of the Democratic Party, which is Barack Hussein Obama. There is, of course, also the Clintons, but Obama is really the one that controlled with Alex Soros this White House in the last few years, and that now wants to have at least a shot at this presidential race with Kamala. However, there was a lot of talk also, if you remember, about Michelle Obama as a possible insertion at the last minute. That's not going to happen, I think, because they all want Kamala to just burn herself out with a failed bid to the presidency, because they all see that she has no chance, even if now, of course, if you tune in on the media, they tell you that she's only 1 point behind in the latest poll, that she's very popular with this, with that, and all the others. And probably they will brainwash a lot of people with this nonsense. I mean, the fact that they had even the courage of saying that she was never the border czar when she was officially nominated the border czar, that means they want to rewrite history in a way that is typical of the Democrats. I mean, if you are a Republican, you do a mistake, they will remind you of that mistake in 20 years' time. With the Democrats, they don't care. In 2 or 3 years, they wish-wash everything with their very powerful mainstream media, which is in their hands. Now they're even trying, by the way, to take over Fox, and there is a family feud between the father, Rupert Murdoch, and his own sons to maintain control over Fox and the direction.
Isn't Fox owned by Disney?
No, Fox here is still the majority holder is Rupert Murdoch.
Right.
For that reason, there is an internal fight at the moment, which is actually appearing in the news, and it's being discussed widely, because Murdoch initially was anti-Trump, but he has understood, of course, that the only way Fox can actually compete with other competitors that have risen in the last few years, including Newsmax, was to stay close to the MAGA movement. However, the sons of Rupert Murdoch are themselves instead inclined to transform it in a more liberal leftist stronghold. Now, that doesn't really change much. We will always have in the media psyop two opposite factions to at least make it look like there is a democratic discourse in this country. At least
Right.
that's what's happening. But now things have changed. I mean, you see, this whole attempted assassination, it's still a mystery, of course. But there is a lot of things that are coming out about this guy who attempted to kill Donald J. Trump, the former president, because there is a lot of similarities also with what happened with Lee Harvey Oswald, with what happened with JFK. The fact that there was possibly a second shooter, the fact that there was, of course, a guy which had been hypnotized probably by his own father, who is a psychologist, and the same happened though to Oswald. So this sounds a little bit MK Ultra-ish, meaning the making of an assassin in the way of a Manchurian candidate. They let it happen. They knew that this guy was, of course, doing what he was doing. He was on the radar even of the Secret Service on that day and of many other federal agencies. So they let him move forward in the hope that he will kill Donald J. Trump, and then at that point, the Republican Party will have been caught by surprise before their own Republican convention. They couldn't, in 2 days find somebody, and they will, of course, intervene a week later by then striking with Biden finally put on the side, because it was never their intention to make him run until the end, like you said. And at that point, we will have been forced on this Kamala. But things are different now. Things are different because there is a different perspective here by ordinary, everyday Americans that have seen what has happened. The incompetence of the Secret Service, the FBI, the way that these federal agencies are completely woke, and they, as they say these days, means that they're not trustable anymore. We saw the FBI going after the political enemies of Joe Biden. We saw that the Secret Service was headed by a woman who now, of course, left her job conveniently, because now she went in front of a commission, didn't answer one question properly, didn't give any answer. Even when she was asked about a second shooter, she wasn't giving an answer, which is very indicative. And then at this point, she was set there. She was put there, we know now, by Jill Biden. So she's a friend of Jill Biden. That's why she was the head of the Secret Service. All this means that it was an inside job leading to the assassination of Trump, like they assassinated John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And I think that at this point it's important to actually debate in the future the subject of mind control in a proper way, understanding the implications in a very serious way, also discussing what has remained of that my MK Ultra program that was devised in the 1950s. But this discussion, of course, we can do another time. But at the moment, we can focus instead on the fact that the guy was the son of two liberals, or two Democrats, because the father was, yes, between brackets, a libertarian, but he was a Democrat member, just like the mother. And the father brought him the gun, which he used for the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. So these are like leftists who, though act strangely enough as a Republican, because, it's more, let's say, it would be more simple to say this guy is a Republican because he was at one point, as he just started voting, he subscribed to the Republican Party. You decide here in America, when you even go to the DMV to get, for example, like I recently did, my California driving license, you have to state if you are a Democrat or Republican. Now, I find that quite incredible that you have to give your political denomination when you even get your car license. I found it really incredible because,
right? Yeah, wow.
But this young boy said he was a Republican. However, soon after, a couple of years later, he ends up giving a conspicuous amount, not for a young person, of money as a donation to a progressive cause. And he does that on the day in which Joe Biden takes his oath of office. Now, it might not have been an incredible donation. It might only be a few dollars, but donating for a young person, who is not even 20 years old, 18 years old, he doesn't have much money, the father gives it's quite indicative that he was wanting to donate to a progressive Democrat institution rather than a Republican one, which he subscribed in the first place. So there we see the guy is not. There is also other indications that this was an inside plot, because there is no sign on his internet searches of how to make a bomb. And he had two devices built up with with a sophisticated apparatus that you need to be a professional to build a bomb. You can't.
You've got to really know what you're doing, or at the very least, you would be researching it.
Yeah, well, otherwise you have to go on the internet and search it for months.
Yes.
The traces of. There is no traces of internet search. So who made the devices?
Right.
They still don't want to tell us, was the gun on top of the roof already when he climbed, when he didn't climb, did he put it before or after? He was, he was capable of mapping the whole place with a drone, which is also incredible when you think that the local police offered the drone protective service to the FBI and they refused it, as well as the Secret Service. So, you're having a candidate to the presidency, you are expecting drone scramblers like the one there is in the Vatican, because in the Vatican there is drone scramblers, and I was actually one of the one who incentivized and invited them to use the scramblers over 10 years ago when they started with the drones. I remember talking with some of my friends who are heads of the police unit there in the Vatican, and I told them, so what are you going to do about the drones? Because I can just buy a drone now and put a bomb on it and blow the whole St. Peter's up. And so from that moment onwards, they started to study away, and they came down with the scramblers, which mishmash all the frequency, and so the drones can't be put up on the air. So how is possible this guy was actually mapping the area with a drone, and that the FBI and the Secret Service refused the local police offer of having their own drones on the skies? This is obvious that there is something completely wrong. We will probably never find also the name of a mysterious guy with a gray suit who, after the whole thing, climbed on the roof and was able to even convince the local police to send them the pics and the videos that they were doing, because they were all convinced this guy was a Secret Service member. But when they actually verified, this guy is nowhere to be seen. Nobody knows who he is. And that means the guy was probably a CIA operative, even if CIA can't operate, as you know, in the US. So there is a
probable cause.
There is definitely a lot of, and there is, of course, a number of phones he had, and a lot of indications that when the police actually arrived at the house of the parents, there have been already a previous visit by one of the federal agencies to clean up the whole home of all evidence. So here we are talking really about a joke. I mean, this is a joke on the American people. It is, of course, something that should be investigated, hopefully, during the Trump presidency.
What's your take? What's your take on this whole thing? I mean, are you?
That's very easy. I mean, it's not a take. It's built by evidence that we are gathering together. I mean, the fact that the father was a psychologist who has vast knowledge of hypnosis, of the fact that he might have given his son also some drugs, some pharmaceutical, psychoactive drugs, because that's possible. If you are, a psychologist, maybe your son is not well, because there were various indications that the son was suffering from some mental pathology, and so we would like to know what kind of relationship there was between a father who buys a gun, a father who is a psychologist, a father who has access to medicine. I mean, it sounds very MK Ultra.
I mean, it's so obvious to me. If just the way you explain, just the setup, it's so obvious that was a contrived hit. It was contrived. The kid was being controlled, probably blacked out, because you know how these things work. When the assassins go out, they literally get activated. They move. They have no idea that they're even doing what they're doing. It's like an altar.
There is a thing here when it comes to hypnosis. And you see, my father was a psychiatrist. There was somebody who experimented at the Sorbonne with LSD in the 60s, which was a program which itself was delivering information to the MK Ultra program. So I have direct experience about what... and fortunately, my father was a Jung psychoanalyst, so he kind of was very much against the use of drugs, medicines of any kind. But regarding the hypnosis, the thing is this: the experiments that were conducted during the whole course of the 50s and 60s demonstrated that, after all, hypnosis can work only if then united with drugs. You see, right. You can hypnotize somebody, but to arrive to the ultimate control, you have to force feed them also some drugs, because that will give the actual thoughts that you're planting in him, let's say, a strong...
But Leo, when we're talking to a lot of the people from the arcane that have been working there, that have been in the arcane for many years, that have been trained in the highest level of magic. So for me, it wouldn't.
Okay, the highest level of magic. Madame Blavatsky said that mesmerism was the highest level of magic. And mesmerism, Madame Blavatsky said that the highest level of magic was mesmerism.
Mesmerisms, yeah.
Mesmerism is a early form, let's say, of trance-induced hypnosis of some kind. It's not hypnosis as we know it today yet, but it was already an early form of hypnosis. So mesmerism is really at the early stages, where you are also mixing elements like music, for example.
Music always comes into it, yes.
Sorry?
Music always comes into it. Everything is music, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's why, I dedicated a book to this subject, Volume 8 of my Confessions, which has a lot of it discusses the influence that music can have. It can be a positive influence, it can be a negative influence.
Right,
I mean,
of course.
We can go back, for example, to Clockwork Orange, type scenario in which music was very important, as well as the substance, though, was very important for Alex Delarge, for the main figure, who was mimicking the experimentations of MK Ultra. Stanley Kubrick was brilliant in that 1971 portrayal of it, of a novel which was built upon this kind of experimentations. So I think that it's about the surroundings, what kind of surroundings this guy had, this guy who attempted the homicide of Donald J. Trump. It's a little bit like investigating Lee Harvey Oswald. But I would say that probably investigating Lee Harvey Oswald was much more complex, because Lee Harvey Oswald was somebody who had a very distinct, long history of being a leftist, a communist, somebody who went to the Soviet Union, who could have been planted such Manchurian candidate kind of,
Was he actually guilty of killing Kennedy, though?
See,
I mean, I'm just trying to think that. I mean, I know he took the fall, but was it him?
It was one of the people who shot.
Yes.
Not the only one, but in this case, we find the same thing happening with this, with the guy who attempted to assassinate Donald J. Trump. I mean, he wasn't the only one there. And that's why it's so important that in front of a commission, the now former head of the Secret Service said, I don't know, when they asked, basically, she was not capable of answering the simple question, was there a second shooter? Now, the second shooter hypothesis that was probably placed on this water tank on top, which was also another high position, by the way, that the Secret Service didn't cover. The Secret Service usually covers all the high grounds with snipers and counter snipers. They become counter snipers, like we saw immediately after the attempted assassination, because they are there. And they should have been actually snipers where the assassin was, where and also in that water tank, which is very high and which has a beautiful view of this open air event. And that's the sad thing about this event, is that probably Trump will never have an open air event again. It has been announced that maybe he will only do them in stadiums and other things, closed environments from now on. And I find that a bit sad, because Trump was a guy of the people who liked these big events happening really in open spaces with thousands and thousands of his followers. And now, instead, of course, the security not being there, he has made this choice, probably for the best. But I think that today we are seeing a very unpopular president like Joe Biden, a very unpopular president that could never make it against Donald J. Trump, especially after the attempted assassination. That was the moment in which Trump rose to a new status. I have a video showed last week on my show of these African children imitating the whole thing in some country in Africa, and they were dressed up. The guy was acting like Trump and then shot, and then the Secret Service. So when you arrive to the level where in a place in Africa, in the middle of a poor village with children who are just playing around with the toys that, as you know, are made in very simple, like we used to do when we were kids. Nowadays, here in the Western world, the children are a little bit more sophisticated. But the fact that they were imitating the whole thing, well, is impressive, because it demonstrates that Trump has reached a new level. Now, this risk, of course, a cult of personality, which could become a little bit too much. But having said that, I think that, like even Zuckerberg said, rising with that fist like this after, it was definitely a badass thing, and it was actually the most Hollywood thing. It was like watching a Hollywood movie, because and they let him do that. That's the thing. that also surprises a lot of people, because a security detail has instructions to cover the president at all costs. After an attempted assassination, he was able to do this and rise above the security service people who were around him. That is, it might have been dangerous if there was another sniper ready to kill. You see, there was probably another sniper ready to kill, but after the failed assassination, this guy, of course, because they have done a forensic analysis of all the shots. And the last shot in the forensic analysis doesn't come neither from the assassin, neither from the snipers that killed him. So where is that shot coming from?
Right.
So this is a lot of incongruences that we find in this investigation. That of
just
course,
everything, yeah. There's just something very dodgy about it, I have to say. You know, and then of course, literally a few days later, Biden steps down because he's ill. I mean, why didn't Biden step down 2 years ago? That would have been the right time. You know, any country who was in their integrity would have realized, you know, the man is ill. You don't put someone who's clearly got what looks like dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that on the stage and embarrass himself, you know, and become like the country clown, you know. Why didn't they do that? You know, this to me is such a deliberate ploy, Leo. I smell so many stinky rats here. There's something sinister going on. Agendas are being pushed left, right, and center. Things are so contrived right now. I mean, that's why I say Trump being clipped in the ear, Biden stepping down, you know, Kamala Harris.
Also the FBI, the Christopher Wray appearance at the House Judiciary Committee, where he was actually implying that Trump was not shot in the ear, but that he was probably injured by something else. Now, that is outrageous to say that when everybody in the world has seen the pic of the actual bullet flying across Trump's head. The FBI is a dangerous organization today. The DOJ is a dangerous organization today here in America, the Department of Justice. These organizations are now becoming political in a way that is against the American Constitution, the American way. It's to have this institution completely biased, completely not touched by any political faction. Instead, they are now just as bad as in any third world country where you have dictators ordering their police or their judiciary to arrest this and that. We are seeing it now in Brazil with that Jesuit 10 president, Jesuit agent Lula, who now wants Bolsonaro, of course, to have a lot of problems with the judiciary. We find it commonly in, like I say, in Africa, third world countries. Third world countries are always like this. There is no justice in those countries. I saw it myself in Italy. Italy, you know, seems to be a nice country for people who, what is in Europe might be civilized. Actually, just the other day, the European Union reminded Italy that they have some very serious issues with the freedom of press. And I myself, I renounced to the Italian citizenship in the month of June because of that. Because Italy is like any, is number like 50 or 48 in the freedom of press after many African countries that are doing better than Italy. So what does it mean? That you can't write about the president, you can't write about anybody, because there is also laws in the Italian constitution that forbid any criticism of the president, of the prime minister, of the pope. You end up with 7 years of jail if you do that. So this is the kind of third world country that I myself have fled from. So I know what it means to transform and to sabotage a country and making it into a banana republic. Now, we don't want America to become a banana republic. And like we just said before the beginning of the show, me and you, when we were chatting, it will have definitely be a very different scenario if Trump was killed. And
Civil War, it brings it sort of, it brings back memories. And I don't know, and it's interesting because I want to sort of bring to light how it happened. Yeah. In 1993, Chris Hani, who was a leader of the South African Communist Party at the time, was assassinated. And I remember our first elections with African Black people were in 1994. That was when Nelson Mandela was elected as president. Now, Chris Hani was taken out. Now, Hani was very powerful. He was actually the leader of the Communist Party. And come to elections, he would have stood up. He would have been Nelson Mandela's opposition, actually, from the South African Communist Party. And at that stage, Hani was in with the communists and Mandela was in with Americans, right? And Hani was assassinated on a Sunday morning whilst coming back from church in front of his 15-year-old daughter. I mean, I will never forget even where I was standing the day that the news came. And I remember it was close to Easter somewhere because I was at my sister's place. And my brother-in-law looked at the TV. He was standing and he said, "Oh my God." He said, "Hani is just being killed." He said, "Now you're going to see shit in this country." But you know what they did? And of course, I'm not going to go into the details about who took Hani out, but it was not who they said. But they were so clever because what they did was they framed, because that was an incident that could have taken our country to civil war because we were just coming out of apartheid. And it was like, if a white person had to have killed him, a white South African had to have killed him, that would have been civil war. But then the guilty parties framed a Polish guy called Janusz Warusz, and he has just been sitting for 30 years for the murder of Chris Hani. I think he's either just come out or coming out now. And through all the stuff, the Truth and Reconciliation, letting people out of jail, he was never allowed out. But that's how clever.
Is he talking now? Is he saying something? Is he actually opening?
No, but they won't, because he obviously took the fall for a much higher power type thing. So, but what I'm saying is how clever they were was that they made a non-South African citizen the assassin, because they knew that if it was a white South African, this country we would have gone into civil war. And that's what I'm saying. It didn't even happen like that. These were foreign governments in here taking out.
In fact, if you know a little bit what happened in the immediate turmoil after the attempted assassination, there was an attempt to blame it on an Italian guy, the whole thing, for the first few hours before the actual name of the guy who attempted to kill Trump and unfortunately killed that poor guy who was protecting his family, Comparatore. Now, I think that it's quite clear here that it's something to do with the MK Ultra program, because MK Ultra stands for manufacturing killers utilizing lethal tradecraft requiring assassination. That's the meaning of it, that people don't really reflect on.
Say that again. Say it slowly.
Yeah, MK Ultra, people talk about it all the time, but they never really focus on why it's called MK Ultra. They stand for, these are the initials of a program that stand for manufacturing killers, that's the K, utilizing lethal tradecraft requiring assassination. So that is the actual program that was built up. So
what does the T stand for at the end?
The T stands for tradecraft.
Okay, tradecraft.
Requiring assassination. So it is basically the experimentations were done, like I said, using drugs, because initially there was also a lot of time wasted on LSD, but ultimately the use of LSD and of other drugs was simply because hypnosis on its own doesn't work. Yes, there is people that can be easily hypnotized. That's true. And they can easily be planted things in their head. But most people will not, they will not blindly follow whatever is planted in their heads or is requested of them. So that's why you need the drug. The drug brings the whole thing to another level, but not only drugs. Then there is also the electroshock, the electroconvulsive therapy. There is also other things to break down the subject. It's interesting, and I think it's not been discussed enough, that this assassin in some way is connected to the world of his father is a psychologist, is a therapist who works still now. So it would be interesting to know from his father, how comes, father of Thomas Matthew Crooks, you, who are a psychologist, had given the access of your gun to your son, such an easy access to a gun which is an AR-15, which is actually a rifle, high capacity rifle that can shoot and can create a lot of damage. So, I mean, if you are a psychologist and you know that your son is a little bit weird, because the son was weird, he had mental, will you send him to a shooting school or whatever, or in any way indulge his aspirations of having all these guns and stuff? No, you probably so Thomas Matthew Crooks, armed with an AR style rifle, opened fire, but who gave him the gun? And the father, you see, initially said he gave the gun. I remember the first couple of days, the father said he gave the gun thinking the son will go to a shooting range and that's it. Then when the whole thing came up about what was, then the version by his father changed slightly, because the father said that he was trying to call the son because he didn't know where he was. And then he noticed that he took his gun. I mean, it doesn't really, there is some incongruences on what the father said. Now, I will investigate the father. And if that's the case, I will actually hold him responsible. So the fact that the actual son had gone on the internet searching for what had happened to the parents of that guy who did a mass shooting, I think, not so long ago. And also, he researched Lee Harvey Oswald. So there is a direct connection here with the JFK assassination.
Right. This is so crazy, Leo. It's like, when we look back in history, I mean, those of us who watch Bryce Watson on a Monday with me, we go through history, the Borgias, I mean, the Rasputin, I mean, and it's crazy history. But when you step back and you look at it, you see how time and time and time again, we repeat the same thing. We don't learn. We're just carrying on doing the same thing. And at some point, we have to change. I mean, listen, our ancestors were as spicy as hell. Make no mistake. We're a little bit more toned down, I think, nowadays than what they were. But, generally speaking, just the whole human nature, the character of the human is still carrying on, in the same way with more modern weapons.
There is an attempt to change the character of the humans, but in a way that makes them like melting snowflakes in front of real problems, because today's young people are a joke. They don't have any sense of reality, and they don't have any balls, sorry if I say, any virility. They are all fluid, gender, whatever. I mean, I like a real man, real women, real people. Of course, you can have your sexual whatever tendency. You might be homosexual. I don't care. We never had any problems when we grow up with homosexuals or anything. We didn't even discuss the whole. I mean, we used to follow Boy George and think whatever. He's a good singer, or George Michael. But today is all about, oh, I represent the LGB, I do this, I do that. And Kamala Harris, the first thing she does yesterday goes on RuPaul's Drag Race. Come on, this is a joke. If you have to make it about sexuality, well, it's a joke. It's not, because I tell you one thing. I noticed one thing, Chantelle, I was here in America for 3 or 4 days. The TVs of America changed completely, because the moment in which there was this attempted assassination, the snowflakes got really scared. I saw things in between Saturday to the next few days. Then, of course, after Trump delivered his speech, then they went back to their usual. But all the mainstream NBC, CBS, all these leftists completely changed. They were no longer against Trump. Trump was called president. It was all, everything had changed for a few days because they were scared shitless. And I made an experiment. I wear a Trump shirt, and people were like, they were trying to be nice, respectful, and you know, here we are in a really democratic stronghold. So when you go around like that, they don't give you a. But I could see for the first time fear in their eyes. If there is a civil war, these people are gonna run, because they are just capable of doing things with their words. But when it comes to the facts, and they know very well that the majority of Republicans in this country owns guns, and that with a civil war, they will end up in a very bad place. So I just wanted to make an experiment. Like I said, I wear a MAGA hat or I wear a t-shirt to see how they will react. And there were people actually would say, well, actually, it was really insane what happened. We're really sad for what happened. And they were shameful. They were, I could see in their faces, they had a sense of shame, because they were the ones that for years have said, Hitler, Trump is like Hitler, the MAGA Republicans are extremists, they are terrorists, this and that. And they went after us with the FBI and everything that happened after January 6th, like we were criminals and violent criminals. And that's not the case. You are the violent criminals. Now we find that this guy who attempted to kill Trump, Thomas Crook, had a account on Gab, but he also was a supporter of Joe Biden. There is actually in his, let's say, his social media have not been analyzed because he was not so present officially, but he had hidden accounts and stuff where he was promoting Joe Biden. So this guy is a leftist assassin, and the people here in the United States, of course, at the beginning, especially the snowflakes, I call the Democrats the snowflakes, the leftists, I saw that they were scared. They were scared. So I'm actually would like to really see them scared and respectful of this process that we are going through, which is going to bring us, without any violence, to elect a new president. But if they try to sabotage the whole process, well, that's something else. I mean, the consequences could be unprecedented, and they will probably be very much similar to what we saw in recent Hollywood blockbusters like Civil War. And we know that there is, of course, this attack from foreign countries, psychological attack. I'm not talking about physical attack, even if now they are intercepting Chinese and Russian patrolling off the coast of with their either ships or either planes off the coast of Alaska. We will have this weekend Russian ships in Cuba, and there is, of course, an attempt to to control a massive psyop against the United States of America from their enemies, foreign and domestic, because people like Barack Obama and Biden, they are corrupt. They are completely in the hands of communist China, and they are no longer to be treated as patriots. They are traitors to this country. We have a long list of traitors to this country. Unfortunately, nobody does anything, because the moment in which you basically become a politician and go to Washington, D.C., you get corrupted in one way or another. And so then you tend to be adomesticated, let's say. You might get, you might be wild and full of ideals and want to go and drain the swamp, but then you see that the swamp will actually bring you down once you are in Washington, D.C. So I think that is important.
Suck you in, yeah.
Suck you in, absolutely. So Kamala is a swamp creature. Kamala was actually, before now this polishing of the TED, she was actually promoted as the most progressive and liberal senator amongst all the senators of the Democratic Party. Well, she's a communist. She's a Marxist. She's a dangerous.
But she's I'm looking some of the comments, and a lot of people saying she's not even American. She's actually British.
Well,
a British citizen.
I will not go there with all these conspiracy theories about where she was born or she was not born, because I think that that will. I mean, there is a lot of claims that are false. Let's focus on the ones that are real. The ones that are real is that she was.
We don't have any proof of that. Absolutely. So yeah.
No, I mean, there is a lot of talk about Harris not being an American citizen, thereby she can serve as a commander. But it's false. She was born here in the U.S., in California, in Oakland, California. And her mother, of course, Indian, the father, Jamaican. And there is a lot of talk, of course, here now. She's not Indian, she's not Jamaican, she's this, she's that. No, what she is very simple. You don't need to build any kind of conspiracies. She is an idiot that made her way to the top of the United States by, and I can't say it because you are a lady. Okay, and that's it. Okay.
Leo.
I mean, I don't want
to you close your eyes.
I don't want to be perceived as a masculinist or as somebody who hates women, but that's the case. She has basically dedicated herself to reach the top. And do it regardless of any other aspiration she had in her life. In fact, that's why she's now a cat lady, like J.D. Vance said. She's somebody who doesn't have a family. You make choices in life. She doesn't have a family. Now, that can be judged also as an insult for some people. But in the case of Kamala Harris, it was because she was only focused on getting to the White House all her life. She was in Italy we call it an arrivista, a social climber, however you want to call it. I mean, this is a palace coup that, of course, has been enacted against a very feeble Joe Biden, who himself is also was there forced by Jill Biden, who was now apparently Jill and Kamala don't get along that well, because Jill really wanted Joe to stay in place until the end. I mean, Jill knows that the moment this presidency finish, it will be the end also for Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden and all these people that are around Joe Biden and know that their future depends on him. We know that the moment Trump comes into his second presidency, Hunter Biden will be immediately facing prison time. So what is the solution now? Well, the solution is very simple. Bidens have made a deal with Kamala that whatever happens, he will be pardoned. Hunter will be pardoned. Hunter will have the possibility. And so in exchange of that, because there was also, and there is at the moment still until January, the possibility that Biden does it himself, pardoning his son.
Right. Can he still do it, even if he's no longer?
Now that he's actually no longer in a bid for the presidency, he might actually do it. He said now that now he might do it, because I mean, he doesn't have anything to lose in any way. Joe Biden in 1 year from now is going to be just an old man like many others I see here, especially in Palm Springs, where we have all these oldies here that reside because it's warm all year long, and so we have very much a big senior population, and he will be just an old folk in an old folks home. The guy is affected by a terminal dementia. That's even I think his brother said that the other day, and they immediately criticized Biden's brother for being an alcoholic, this and this other. I think at the moment, Kamala, of course, the polls show that she has a good lead, not a total lead, because Trump is still at least 1 point above her. But I don't think that this, I think that after people see the confrontation that is planned, we have this TV match between Trump and Kamala Harris, then people will be like, whatever. But even now, I mean, most Americans are very angry with Kamala because she has hidden the situation of Joe Biden. That is something that a lot of Americans are at the moment very angry. And so only 3 out of 10 Americans think Kamala can win this presidential race. And I saw actually just yesterday or the day before, there was MSNBC, which is like the most leftist of leftists. I mean, this is like merging NBC and Microsoft together. MSNBC is a TV channel of hell. And that TV channel was conducting a interview on a few ordinary people, asking them about Kamala, and they were really unimpressed. And they were Democrats, and they were unimpressed. So I don't know. I mean, there is a lot of hype. There is a big, massive psyop on the population of America. Now, we always say that psyops can't be conducted to your own population. That is one of the rules of psychological operations. Or you can't direct them to your own citizens. Here in America, we have actually a constitution that protects us. In South Africa, you don't have that. They can direct psyop on their own population, and they will not have any problems. The same also in Europe. Most countries don't have in their constitution any effective way of protecting them from a psychological operation. Here in America, we have a constitution that specifically protects us from psychological operations. But when they are conducted by the state, in this case, we don't really know who is conducting them. And it's the Democrats together with the mainstream media, and together, let's say what we commonly define as the deep state, which is conducted this massive operation to rebrand Harris in a short time, and telling us that she is the ultimate solution of all our problems. I mean, it's
who will come in with her? Who will be her vice president? If, let's say she wins, who would be her vice president?
I don't personally think it's going to be Clinton or Obama. That might have been an idea, but I think at the moment they are rather assessing various governors from the Democratic Party, especially in states and in areas of the United States where they actually need their support for this ticket. So there is also talk of a former astronaut becoming vice president. So that gives because everybody likes an astronaut, everybody likes space, and so they might pick up this guy who is a former astronaut. I mean, I really, for the good of the United States, I hope Kamala never wins, because
a real deep state government. I mean, that's the shadow government in action right there. Wow. No, let's hope not. Let's pray not.
Let's hope not, because for the security of the United States, you see, the problem here is the security of the United States is at risk. And that's why I think that Kamala doesn't stand a chance. Going back to the border czar thing, she was made in charge of a border that for the first time in history let over 11 million people inside this country. Now Trump says 20 million. Now I think it's a sum between 11 to 20 million, but here we're talking about an enormous amount of people every day arrive illegally in this country because of these incompetent people like Kamala Harris and the Biden administrations. The Americans are not happy about it. We have here, 2 hours from here, we have the San Diego border. We have also Mexicali, an hour away, an hour and 50 minutes. I'm talking from the border here. I mean, I'm really close to the border with Mexico. And San Diego, which was visited just yesterday by Mike Johnson, is at the moment one of the most, it is basically flooded with illegal immigrants. And it's a big problem. It is a big problem. But it's not a problem for the Democratic Party. They let it happen because they need their votes. Now, it has just surfaced that probably 9% of the people who voted in 2020 were not American. This is information that just surfaced on the media here in the US. Now, I remember in 2020, people were saying, why don't you vote? I said, no, I'm just a green card holder. I can't vote. I mean, at the time, I don't think I even had my green card. Oh, yeah, I just got the problem. But in any case, I will never attempt to vote because it's an illegal thing that should bar you later on from ever becoming an American citizen. Now I am an American citizen. I will be very proud this year to vote for the first time in what is the most consequential, important election in American history. So I'm very honored that I'm American and I can do that. But 9% of the vote, we said there were dead people voting in 2020. Now we know that there were also 9% that were not American. And that is really possible only because the Democratic Party let it happen. They let all these people in because they simply are votes, and more votes.
Right, exactly.
Now, somebody's asking me, what do you think of J.D. Vance? J.D. Vance is, of course, the vice president's, the vice presidential pick of the Trump ticket. And now is the Trump, of course, Vance ticket. Now, J.D. Vance, I personally saw the movie. I didn't read the book yet, this Hillbilly Elegy or whatever it is. And I saw that the guy came from nothing. Now, he's not necessarily a completely innocent figure. I mean, he's definitely somebody who wanted to arrive to the top, and he managed. I don't know what he did to arrive to the top because the guy had absolutely nothing. And I mean, his actually personal story, life story made into a film that you can see on Netflix. And I suggest you see it because you can understand the psychology of this guy. I mean, the mother is up until 10 years ago was an heroin addict. The guy was brought up in a setting which is typical, unfortunately, of many Americans that are fighting with drug addiction, with poverty, with what way too often is described as white trash, because the left is always focusing on the poverty of the minorities, of the blacks, of this and this other. But here we have, and somebody who's telling you knows this because I have been across the whole of the United States. I've been literally driving in 2008 and 2019. I went through many states simply driving and watching America. Because once you you see real America, then it's a different thing. When you are abroad, you don't really perceive real America because you have the filter of the left, which is either coming from Los Angeles or New York, either from Hollywood or from the media conglomerate in New York. So you don't really have a perception of the real Americans. And there is some really big poverty in the white population in America, in certain areas, that really shocked me. Tell you the truth, really shocked me. It was like,
Right.
I mean, I went through certain states and certain areas. I was like, I was saying to my wife, whoa, this is not the way to live. And so these are towns that maybe had, especially where J.D. Vance comes from, these are places like Middle America where maybe they had an economic source that then kind of faded because maybe the economy changes and the cities get abandoned. They end up with a few inhabitants, most of them. So you have a lot of ghost towns in America at the moment, to tell you the truth. And
Right.
and Vance is somebody who comes from this poor background. He doesn't come from a privileged background. Now, I don't, like I just said earlier, I don't know what kind of compromises he had to do. I don't know if when he was in Yale University, he joined the Skull and Bones, but I don't know that. I honestly don't know that, and I hope he didn't. But having said that, he comes from a background which I think needs to be addressed. And I think that a lot of people will see J.D. Vance as one of them. Because here, everybody, the mainstream media focuses on that little black girl on a bus that tells her pathetic little story, which was basically Kamala Harris, which grew up by the way, she grew up in Canada. She's just the worst leftist scumbag of all time. Comparing her with J.D. Vance, accusing Vance of this and this other, while instead you say, Kamala, oh no, she's proper. She's all proper what? I mean, proper what? She has been somebody who has done absolutely nothing for 4 years. And suddenly now she's the hero that is supposed to save us from what? From herself? It's a little bit difficult, if not impossible, I think, for the Democrats to put this massive psyop in motion without really failing to address the fact that she's inconsistent. So I don't really know who's going to be the vice president pick for Kamala Harris, but I'm sure it's going to be somebody that's going to help this ticket.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's very weak with Kamala. And so let's see how they're going to... I hope, the only thing I hope really here is that they don't trick us in any way, and that the integrity of the election is taken care of. Because that's a very important thing for the country,
Absolutely.
Because if she replaces Biden now, we know that it's only for convenience. It's because, and Trump's campaign has already challenging them in court, you, in theory, if a new presidential bid is made, you can't collect the money of the other past candidate. So they are making a point here that because Biden and Harris were on the same ticket, she can keep that money. And we are talking about hundreds of millions. So this is not a joke here. It's not.
We're not talking small change here.
No, I'm not talking peanuts here. So they are, of course, saying, okay, let's stick with Kamala, because otherwise we're going to have to lose all that money. And so I hope that they carry on with this losing a bid for the presidency until everybody understands that it was also the most undemocratic way of putting somebody there, because nobody has done a primary for Kamala. And the last time that Kamala did a primary, she turned out to be the last one on the whole thing. In 2020, let's not forget that Kamala wanted to become president, and she was last. Nobody wanted it. Not even here in California. There was nobody voting in the primaries for Kamala. And so she was kind of abandoned. Then she got the call from Biden because of the fact she's black and Indian and all that bullshit. And so she was laughing like an idiot. She laughed her way into the White House. But there must be a primary for a party like the Democratic Party. Otherwise, it becomes like a Soviet or Chinese style kind of situation where suddenly the elites of the party, like the Obamas, decide, yes, Kamala is my...
Right.
But that is not a democratic process.
We hardly hear about her here, honestly. I mean, I know who she is. You never hear in this country, I mean, you hear about a whole lot of other politicians, make no mistake. But Kamala, we never hear about her.
But there's nothing to hear. There's nothing.
That's what I'm saying. It's like she's but tepid, lukewarm. Do you know what I mean? That's the feeling I get. Like she's lukewarm.
I mean, the fact that here in California she's disliked because she was actually helped in a political career by somebody who himself was judged as corrupt. I mean, Willie Brown was judged as corrupt. He was investigated by the FBI for accepting a bribe by a fishing company, I think. I don't know. But, I mean, we're talking about corrupt people, very corrupt people. And Kamala shouldn't have a chance in hell. But the mainstream media makes miracles in presenting you somebody who is an absolute nobody as she is the savior of the world.
Right, exactly.
It's all a psyop. Like I said, at the moment, America is definitely the place where there is a psyop taking. There is an internal psyop, a psychological operation to sell us the image of a different Kamala Harris.
Yes, exactly. You know, Leah, now that
for it, I don't think that the Americans are so...
No, but no, I don't think so anymore, because I think that now that we know what we're looking for, and now that people are a lot wiser and a lot more awake than what they've been 4 and 8 years ago, I think we're going to be looking at something very different in terms of that. Yeah.
I hope. I just hope that that we are not forced into another presidency that most of the Americans don't want. I hope that we are not forced into receiving millions of votes that shouldn't be even accepted because they're not from American citizens, or by dead citizens, or by... I mean, I hope that real Americans can vote, real Americans can have and live their democratic process through these next elections.
Right. Absolutely.
Now, many people will say, why you talk about Brown, why you talk about his romantic relationship with what used to be Alameda County's deputy district attorney, Kamala Harris, because she did have that romantic relationship just preceding her own appointment to 2 California state commissions in the mid-90s. Without that appointment, Kamala Harris today will not be in the White House. So it wasn't just like you are the lover of an important politician. You are somebody who took advantage of that important politician for your own career, and now you are in the White House. So who else she gave sexual favors to? Because there is a lot of talk about also Kamala and Obama. There is a lot of talk. There is a lot of talk.
Ooh, which Obama, Mike or Barack?
But in this case, I think it's Barack Hussein Obama. And then we have also the Hamas situation. Now, we saw Netanyahu arriving here to address Congress. We saw Netanyahu arriving in the United States and not being really received by anybody at the airport. Later on, he was received by an extremely frail Biden. I mean, if you see the images of Netanyahu and Biden at the White House, they were sincerely embarrassing. I mean, we see for the first 2 minutes, Biden just like this. I was like, is he okay? And then there is all these protesters outside, these people protesting, and they set flags on fire. Hamas flag was risen on top of the Washington, D.C. memorial instead of the American flag. These people are insane. Like Trump said, they should be given a year of jail for having banned the American flag in the middle of Washington, D.C. That's the minimum. I think Trump.
Yeah, that's treason. But that's considered treason to burn your country's flag. I mean, that's a serious offense.
Kamala didn't want to really see Netanyahu until she was forced into it, because, of course, we know the Jewish lobby here is very powerful, but she was literally forced into it because she was like totally on the side of these terrorists. So that's why I have, as you know, Volume 10, a book which is telling us all about Islamic Freemasonry, about the secret societies, also about the origins of Hamas, and why you have all these protesters here in the United States who are actually financed by Iran. So Kamala was pushed, but in the end, she is a leftist, but she's also an Islamist. That means she's an Islamo-communist. That is the worst kind of person you can ever have as president of the United States. Only today, the Kremlin did a very smart move with Dmitry Peskov, saying that Muslims shouldn't treat badly women of other faiths. And he was very categorical on that, and I totally support what the Kremlin did, because Muslims shouldn't ever even dare laying a hand or saying anything towards a woman of any religion, including their own religion. Unfortunately, that's not the case. If you're Muslim, you stay Muslim, and you want to be subject to that idiotic faith, that's your own problem. But today, the choice that the Kremlin did to actually side with women against Muslims and the way they treat women, I think that is a very important difference with here. While instead we have Kamala Harris welcoming drag queens in the White House, because that's what she did, talking about nonsense. Why don't we address the fact that Muslims here in the United States, in places like Michigan, which have towns which are becoming, literally, they are under the control of the Sharia, treat women like shit. Let's address that for a moment.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree.
So I, of course, invite people to get Volume 10 of my confessions. And I want to anticipate to all my audience that probably next month I will be presenting Volume 11. But I'm not going to say anything about Volume 11.
What are you talking about? What are you, some Speedy Gonzales here? Right? Yes. Wow.
Well, I might be able to do it. I don't know if I will be able to do it, but I might be able to do it. But it's more, the problem is more that I have to rely on graphic designers and things, other people, because if it was for me, I could bring out a book a month. And it is, of course, a very important book that I'm about to bring up, but it's, of course, this probably.
What's this one based on?
I will not
What's
say
11 based on?
It's top secret. It will be a surprise. Yeah. It will be a surprise.
Are you not going to give us your Arab fans a little tidbit?
Let's say that it will bring a lot of clarity on a subject of great importance for today's world. But I will not go into the details of it because I would like to leave it as a surprise. While instead, I will be showing you the latest book, which is not mine, but it's from our publishing company and from my wife, which is the ZAGAMI Family Cookbook, Authentic Italian cooking.
But I said we want your wife on the show to come and talk about her cuccolinis.
And here you have all, of course, this is a book with images also and all the recipes of these wonderful dishes that are also partly from my family, from Christy's family. And
so where is that book available then? Is that also on Amazon?
Amazon. You can get it also on Kindle. So it's available also on Kindle. You have also pictures of my family.
Wow.
In reality, there is salads, there is first courses, second courses, vegetarian or meat, depending, pizzas, but teaching you how to actually make the pizza or making the pasta fresh. So I would suggest you get this book because I like to eat.
It's very cool.
I like to eat, but I like to eat good food because we are what we eat. And I said that already in one of my books.
But I think we need to meet your wife, Leo. We need to meet your wife on this channel.
No, that's no problem. Next month, we will probably get her to at least give you a recipe of this book and to maybe present it herself.
Yes, can you please get her to cook us something as well?
Yeah, absolutely. But I really, you see, when I came to America in 2019 to live permanently here, the first thing I missed, of course, is the cooking because, you know, Italy is food is everything in Italy. But thanks to my wife that had been living with me for 10 years in Italy, I don't miss Italy. I don't miss Italy because she's able of making everything and more. And actually, the Italians who have read this book, and also, I have my Italian show in which I present at times my wife's recipes and stuff. They were extremely impressed. I
think that you should present us a recipe a week in any event.
In any event,
as a bonus for the Arab viewers, and then we can all cook the recipe that month. And then we can have a recipe club with you, Leo.
Well,
we can discuss.
Like I said, maybe next month we will have a surprise appearance by my wife, so she can tell you more about this book, and maybe I will tell you more about my upcoming book, which like I said, is on a very important topic. I would like to keep it a surprise, but of course, once I have mostly I want to keep it a surprise because I'm not sure if I'm able to bring it out for next month or the end of September. I think I will be able to bring it by the end of August. I don't like to announce things that then don't manifest. So I like to announce things once I have them. And I'm on the last 2 chapters of my new book. So that's kind of like almost there. Once I finish it, I will send you the presentation of it and I will let you know what it's all about. And I tell you, you will be quite impressed by it because it's about a subject of great interest.
Well, Leo, you always impress us. You never disappoint. So we're very happy and very excited to hear about your next adventure.
I think that writing books today, books that of course can reach an audience that speaks in English, so that's quite a vast audience. For me, it's a privilege that we are at a turning point in history in which the more we have a clear idea of what's going on, the more we can maybe write for us a better future. So my books have always had that intention, first of all. And now that we are getting, volume 10 was, for example, the first book to really clear people concepts about Islam.
Right.
I'm not saying that every Muslim is evil. I'm not giving that kind of generalistic simplification. I'm actually specifying all the incongruences and all the evil sides of this faith. Right. That is a segment that is, divided in many branches. I'm also saying that there might be people who have a good heart and good intentions, even amongst the Muslims. But organized religion has always been about mind control.
Right, exactly.
That's the thing. So maybe I can just tell you that mind control might be one of these next topics that we need to look into.
Now we're talking, Leo. You see?
So I might I might prepare your audience for what is coming. And what is coming is more like you see, these books have always brought us further revelations of what is commonly known. I like to dig deep in my subjects. So
I know you do, and that's why I'm super excited. I can't believe that you got your next book out already. But wow, what can I say?
It's not out already, and like the Muslims say, inshallah. I mean, if God wants, and I hope that God wants.
Inshallah, inshallah.
So I hope that God wants. I hope that also that people realize that we are in front, of course, also of an unprecedented moment in history with the coming elections. So the Kamala Harris topic today was of great importance because we can't be brainwashed about Kamala Harris. You can't be brainwashed about somebody who is an incompetent person suddenly transformed in a superhero. But that is the power of mind control, to transform things. It's like a little bit like the Midas touch of mind control. You know, suddenly she becomes, wow, the solution of all our problems. She's not the solution of all our problems. And of course, we have an ongoing war in Ukraine that is not going to get any better if Kamala really stays in the White House as president. It's going to get even worse, much worse. The same thing can be said also for the situation in Gaza. Now everybody says, oh, Trump is a Zionist, even Biden is, everybody is a Zionist. Yeah, but there is actually a deal with Netanyahu. If Trump is elected, the war is going to be suspended in November immediately. That is, of course, a secret deal that Netanyahu is discussing at the moment with Trump in Mar-a-Lago. And then there will be also the possibility of immediately ending up the war in Ukraine. And because Zelensky is no longer a democratically elected leader, he has canceled the possibility to have new elections. And so he's no longer a democratic elected leader. He knows that. He already knows that he will have to give Crimea and the Donbass to Russia. So basically, he has lost the war, and he has simply to comply with what are the requests that Trump has given to him in a private conversation that took place last week. So with Trump, we suddenly have peace in the world, like this. And that is worthy of a Nobel Peace Prize. Unfortunately, it's never going to happen because the Nobel Peace Prize is given by the Norwegian Illuminati, Freemasons, scumbags, leftists, socialists. And
exactly.
And they give the Nobel Peace Prize to a guy like Barack Obama, who was the father instead of ISIS, as I say in this book. So, and like Trump said, the father of ISIS, Barack Hussein Obama endorses Kamala. That means if in the case of Kamala winning, we can have plenty of other Muslim terrorist attacks like 9/11, because the terrorists are already here thanks to Kamala, the border czar who let them in. Entire teams of ISIS members, ISIS-K, are already here. Even one of the most wanted Iranian killers who is plotting another I hope only attempted, and I hope they will not even attempt another assassination on Donald J. Trump. There is actually a guy that they are searching. They even have his face, his name, and he runs around the United States for Iran, ready to kill.
Wow.
So,
well, let's pray that doesn't happen. You know, it won't happen.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me on. And of course, we see each other next month. And
indeed, we look forward to hearing what your next book's about. And when
the moment my next book is about food, and it's the ZAGAMI family cooking book, which I.
Are you lucky? You're going to get some food now. Are you being cooked for now?
well, it's still early here in the morning, so we're not yet ready for lunch, but in a couple of hours, definitely we will go into
lucky
the
you.
ZAGAMI cooking book for one of the recipes. The good thing about having a cooking book, once you have written to it, then you have all your recipes there. You can never forget them again, and that's it. You have, but also it's incredible how a lot of people have contacted me in the last few days saying, well, what about the Illuminati pasta dish which you have? Because there is an Illuminati pasta dish. There is some dishes that I have included, my own dishes, in Christie's work. And one of them is called the Illuminati pasta here. And this is
what is in there? What is in the Illuminati pasta?
Okay, so if you want, I can give you the ingredients. I will not tell you how we prepare it because you have to get the book, or maybe you have to wait for next month for.
Is it not like vodka pasta?
No, well, that is a good one. This is 300 grams of rigatoni, tuna, roasted peppers, fresh basil leaves, chopped garlic cloves, anchovies, salted capers, olive oil. It's and this is the final result.
Wow, looking good.
Well,
you see, that's fast. I think you should give us like exactly the recipe per month.
Okay. Next time I will give you with the help of my wife, we will be reviewing you at least one recipe from the cooking book.
Yeah, so then we've got to give feedback of what it was like. I'll do Illuminati pasta. That'll be my favorite.
Okay. All the best, guys. God bless you all. Take care.
God bless everybody. Thank you so much, Leo. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in 4 weeks again. Take care, everybody. Bye. See you soon.